Well, good morning, everybody. I wanted to thank you all for joining me for the third Conversations in Sustainable Floral Design, and I'm very honored to have Debra join us this morning. I bet that most of you know who Debra is, because for most of us, Debra is our fairy godmother and our champion, but I won't presume that everyone knows who you are, Debra. So I'm going to give you a quick intro. In my mind, there are two women that are responsible for the sustainable floristry movement as a whole, and it started with the slow flowers movement. And I think that those women, in my mind, are Amy Stewart, who wrote Flower Confidential in 2007 and kind of exposed the way that international flower farming was happening, what that looked like. And then you followed up in 2012 with your book, The 50-Mile Bouquet, which, had my husband not taken over our office today, I was going to hold up my copy and show everybody. But anyway, so from then, you then founded the slowflowers.com website, which has become Slow Flowers Society. So why don't you tell us, Debra, how you came from a career as a journalist to being the torch holder for the Slow Flowers movement?
Oh, I like that, torch holder. That sounds like Liberty or something.
Yeah, well.
You mentioned Amy Stewart, and she's definitely a person who kind of blessed me in pursuing this. I guess I would call myself a garden variety garden writer back in the first 10 years of the 2000s or 21st century, whatever you want to call it. I wrote for Better Homes and Gardens and Sunset and the Los Angeles Times and Garden Design and like all the big titles that we, those of us in horticulture like you, Toby, love to read. And I was so interested in, on the ornamental horticulture side and design, that was really my strength. And I didn't ever want to tell anybody how to get the black spot off their tomato plants like that. That was not my jam. But I did love flowers. And I started meeting flower farmers in Washington State and then in California and Oregon. I was kind of up and down the West Coast at that time between living in LA and living in Seattle. And I fell in love with the product. I mean, every flower that was grown here in the Pacific Northwest, it's like an oasis here. Things just grow and thrive, especially west of the Cascades. And at the same time, I was meeting farmers who were telling me about the uneven playing field that they were up against in terms of trying to sell flowers commercially, not just to farmers market customer, but maybe to a wholesaler or to a florist or something mass market, grocery. And they were all having trouble. They were all getting lowballed on price and having to compete on price rather than quality and seasonality. And that just, I don't know, as a gardener, that just confused me. And I wanted to fight for the little guy. And my way background before I was doing garden writing, I was a business writer. And I worked for Puget Sound Business Journal, which is a weekly business newspaper from like the early 90s until till about 2001. And, I left that thinking I'm never going to be a business writer again. But I've been pulling those skills out of my toolbox to write floral entrepreneurs and floral businesses. All of that going on, I just found that there were many stories to tell, giving voice to people who weren't being recognized, especially domestic flower farms. Amy wrote the Flower Confidential book in 2007, and we're friends. We're kind of on the same book lecture circuit for garden writers. Mm-hmm. I loved what she did, and when I decided to continue in that same subject matter, I didn't want her to think I was stepping on her toes, so I asked her, how she felt about me kind of picking up where she left off.
Sure.
And backing up, I love Flower Confidential, but it's kind of a bummer of a book. Like when you're done reading it, you just feel so hopeless and helpless.
Yeah.
Or that was 12 years ago. And I just said, okay, can I do like the sequel to Flower Confidential and talk about where are the positive glimmers of hope and where are the innovation, and creativity and opportunities for people to reclaim domestic floral agriculture. And Amy basically blessing. She wrote the foreword to the 50-Mile Bouquet.
Right.
in 2012, and actually we gave the title of her essay in the foreword, Slow Flowers. So that is the first place the word slow flowers showed up.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's kind of connecting all these relationships and ideas. And all of a sudden I just fell down the rabbit hole of flowers, and I really have been pivoting toward flowers to the point now where that's my job.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
You're the spokesperson for us all.
People let me. I mean,
yeah,
and I'm happy to be one of the voices, because I think we need a lot of voices, Toby. It's like what you're doing is, I just want us to applaud, because we need more spokespeople. We can't just have one, because we have a diversity of points of view.
Well, a movement needs bodies in it, right? I mean,
yes.
You can't have a movement without members.
It does feel lonely sometimes, but I'm so encouraged by people, like you and so many others who we've collaborated with, where we know we're not alone.
Yeah, totally. So I like what you were just talking about. It makes me wonder, what do you think? So I know, I don't know when NAFTA was, and then that kind of sliced the domestic flower production and sent it overseas. I don't know if people know.
Toby, it was not NAFTA. It was the Andean Trade Preference Agreement from 1990-91, in that period of time. NAFTA.
Okay, so NAFTA was afterwards, but that's what happened. So we gave a bunch of money to Colombia and Ecuador to start flower farming instead of farming drugs, right?
Yeah.
That was the thing during Bush's era. And that's kind of what gutted domestic floral production. I wonder, like you said, at the tail end of your garden writing career, you started seeing all these, farmer florists poking up, flower farmers. What do you think was giving birth to that? And then it's really just continued to go, maybe exponentially since then. Do you have a feel for what drove that to begin again?
Putting my business writer hat on, I kind of looked at what happened with all consumer categories after 9/11. Which was the pendulum swung very, very far toward bringing ourselves closer to home. A lot of it was about food security, and that's why there was an explosion of vegetable gardening content. I was a book reviewer for many publications back then, and I would get literally, I had 50 vegetable gardening books come in the mail in 1 year. And, flowers were ignored. Flowers were considered lightweight.
They're frivolous.
Exactly. They weren't essential. And it took a while to move away from that. But that kind of the seed of that, I need to learn how to grow my own. I need to kind of have some sense of security and know where my food comes from. All of that built the foundation of the house we're living in now, with where we want flowers to be. And in some rooms, flowers are there. And from a garden writer's point of view, what pivoted the conversation to include flowers was pollinators, and we need flowers to attract pollinators.
Right.
We can have yummy vegetables, and all of a sudden, flowers were allowed into the room. Then people who grew flowers had a legitimate place at the table. So that was kind of, one thing going on. And then I think the other, from more of the design point of view, the other phenomenon happening in the first, now 2 decades of the 21st century is the whole artisan maker movement, and kind of that mass-produced homage that we at least in our perfect selves want to be. I'm wearing a top that I bought at an outlet store in Philadelphia 10 years ago, and it probably was made in China. So I don't want to say that I'm like a purist and weaving my own linen or anything, but I do think we're shifting toward that conversation in all consumer categories.
Yeah, and I think we're going to see that again. I think we're going to have another wave of that from all this pandemic and food security. Like you're saying, flowers are already at the table. So it'll be interesting to see how, when we go through this cycle, what happens with all of this, but I really think that people having spent so much time in their homes is going to really influence when we come out, people's value of homey things. Anything domestic is going to see a huge rise in fashionability and focus and thinking. So it could be really promising for flowers.
Yeah, we're seeing people teach themselves how to make feta cheese and, make sourdough bread, which is, cool. But that was something that I remember my mom doing in the 70s. So it's like...
Totally. Well, it goes perfectly with dried flowers. I mean, you can't have a sourdough bread on your table without a dried flower arrangement, right? Somewhere.
Hold that picture.
Yeah, we may yet see macrame come back again for another round.
Yeah, we will. Candle making, that's another one.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Right? Funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, as you have been doing your virtual traveling during this time of the COVID shutdowns, I have been noticing a few bigger floral wholesalers like Milano and Camflor who never would sell directly to anybody. They're starting to sell direct. And so I wonder what you are seeing from people, from flower farmers and how they are pivoting their business models. What you think, just any sort of thoughts on floral supply chain, changes in business model, what are you seeing? What do you think we're going to see?
Yeah.
State of the industry report.
Yeah, thanks for asking. In fact, you emailed me those questions late last week, and I jotted down some thoughts this morning. And I'll just share some of them and cut me off if I go too long. We've already talked about needing a secure supply chain for everything in our lives. I think I'm seeing a future that is in some ways more fractured. Like people want to be their own vertically integrated businesses. So we have reliance on, supplies that we can't control. That vertically integrated doesn't just have to be you in your own yard growing flowers. It can be you setting up your own reliable source of interdependency with a grower or whatever. And I think I am seeing that flower farmers are changing their distribution models, kind of what you alluded to with larger farms, rethinking old ways about the big corporate farms, mainly in California. That's happening where like people who, as you mentioned, who have never before sold direct to a florist are going, maybe that's not such a bad idea. And I better move this perishable product. I mean, I think it was something like jars of honey on the shelf. Maybe that would be different. But perishable product is got a, the clock is ticking, right?
Yeah. It's got a vase life. Not just a shelf life.
And not to cut out the wholesalers. I also think that wholesalers are the best ones are trying to figure out how to diversify their sourcing. And, maybe those big jumbo jets from South America are, they're still coming in because basically they're chartered. It's not like the flight's been canceled, but the transportation is more difficult. And there's a question on the minds of not only consumers, but florists about, the origin and is it safe? And I have no knowledge or no insight to that. I just hear those questions. So I think the wholesaler to say, how can we support local farmers because that's a reliable source? Maybe we're going to all have to live in the moment and be more seasonal and not need that out of season, Mascari in, November because some bride Mascari bouquet. I also feel like, so florists are kind of pivoting to growing more flowers and trying to partner with farmers. Farmers are trying to come up with new models of moving their product because maybe they have, maybe their farmers market is shut down. Maybe their wholesaler is shut down. So it seems like everything's getting smaller transactions, smaller interactions, and I don't think this is bad. I think that maybe on the other side, we're going to have a shift from like, oh, you have 6 big ticket weddings this year, and that you're going to make your bank on those 6 big ticket weddings. And maybe it's going to flatten out and be a more organic, steady stream of supplying people in your community. And maybe that moderation is more sustainable. I'm just questioning this. Instead of like feast or famine, which is kind of like what
Sure.
now, maybe steady and sustainable is going to be a calmer, more manageable approach to business. And I know for myself, I'm focused more on designing with what's for now rather than writing a recipe and searching for just the right spot, a flower to fill that recipe slot. So that said, I think that there will be people who fail and who go out of business. I don't want to be unrealistic. I think it's happening in some categories right now, like restaurants. It's tragic.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that helps. Those are just my thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all going to have to rethink. We don't know what the future looks like, right? So we are all going to need to be real creative and pivot and think on our toes and be willing to change up the way we serve people. I think on the florist level, we're going to have to rethink the way we price, the way we value our services, the way we recipe, the way we source flowers. But I think it needs to be bigger and deeper and part of a way you think about your business system. I am real pained to see all the people who have had to refund. Maybe folks didn't do a good job of setting aside those deposit monies. And, I heard an interesting conversation. I'll put this in the show notes on my website, where I heard this conversation, but they were talking about, florists, we typically take a small deposit to hold the date. But we meanwhile have put in this work on doing our recipes and doing our, calculations and that kind of thing. And so if someone cancels, we're out that money, right? We didn't really get to bill them for that time. And so I think rethinking the way that we value our services and how we bill according to that value is going to be really important for us to move forward and become better at remaining whole through all the steps of our sales process with our people. And I think the way we source flowers and write our recipes is just going to be a small part of that. But there will be some interesting lessons to learn.
I think you're right, and a lot of it is communication and managing expectations. And I don't know. I feel like there'll be customers who will completely align with that, and others who are like, nope, I don't want to pay you, a design fee up front or a consultation fee up front. And we should keep talking about that, because I think this is going to be a primary concern for 2021 weddings and or events. Is are they all going to be super small, just bouquet pickup, designer's choice? Okay, that's cool. Then you don't have to have a consult. Right. Maybe that's okay for a while. Right. Swings. So this is the mother of all recessions. So it's not going to be like 2008 economic downturn for sure.
Right. Well, the thing is, though, people are still going to get married, and I think we can pretty much bet money that they're going to be smaller gatherings. And so we need to build that into our product offerings right now. And the problem is we don't have time so much to think about it because so many people are rescheduling. And I'm getting new inquiries for 2021 they're not reschedules. And it's like, gosh, we haven't even had the 2020 season. And then for me to be trying to imagine what it's going to be like on the other side is quite challenging. I don't even know what I'm entering into. How am I going to give you pricing for your wedding? So,
yeah, that's interesting. It kind of leads to a question you asked me about, how things are going to change in getting back to the new normal. I have some thoughts on that, because you're talking about not knowing how you're going to format your offerings. And I had a conversation last week with Christina Stemble from Farm Girl Flowers, who's just racing like 23 hours a day trying to keep her business afloat by changing it up.
Yeah.
She said that she had a conversation with another female CEO in another industry, and that person said to her, If you were going to start your business right now, what would it look like?
Yeah.
And it was really powerful for me to hear that. It's like I've been super locked into so many things that I do because that's the way I do them. And
right.
In a way, the pandemic is giving us permission to throw everything out the window and start over. And
totally.
So while you have these couples who just wanted to reschedule, and maybe you're locked into those contracts, maybe it's just, a chance to change it up and, think, what do you love doing and what do you not love doing? And
totally.
I feel that's kind of powerful if you can be courageous.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I have really loved this time to slow down and focus on the garden and kind of like have a break. And I'm sort of excited for a summer that's full of some gaps and time. And it makes me realize, was it really working for me and for my family to be going so hard all the time? And I think this is what you were talking about a little bit when you said steady and a more sustainable pace. Yeah.
For me, I've been always locked into holding the Slow Flowers Summit during American Flowers Week, which is June 28th to July 4th. However, that means I ignore what American Flowers Week needs in terms of promotion and support and advocacy because I'm so freaking busy.
Focused on the summit, yeah.
A real conference. So a friend of mine asked me, it's like, why do you have to do them in the same week? And I'm like, oh, it's always been that way. But now I'm thinking,
maybe it's...
yeah. Or, I've always been reliant on print magazines for my writing income. A lot of those magazines, sadly, are going bye-bye. Country Gardens magazine, which you were in, Toby, last summer.
Yeah.
Article that we produced in my living room about your floral jewelry.
Right. Yeah.
A venerable quarterly magazine with 130,000 circulation. The current issue is their last one.
Oh.
And this has been my bread and butter for a decade. I've produced so much of them, and they're wonderful people, and they're owned by Better Homes and Gardens. But somebody there just said, the money didn't work, and they couldn't pencil. Right. And it's probably because of advertising. But okay, so what do I do with all that content that I produce? And I'm sitting on a URL called Slow Flowers Journal that is a magazine style website, which I've always posted all my florist review articles on. And now I'm thinking, A, I don't have to write about topics I'm not interested in anymore, like the black spot stories, just because someone's paying me. B, if I write for slowflowersjournal.com, I own the content. And C, most importantly, I can use this platform to really shine a light on the great work of Slow Flowers members and inspire others. And the money will follow, hopefully. But in the meantime, I can change it up and not wait for someone to ask me to write an article, but to take a kind of my own agency and say, you know what, this is what I'm going to do. And I don't have to ask anybody for that permission. And I can be inspired by the people I come across every day who maybe I couldn't pitch a story about them, but I can write the story and put it on my...
Yeah. Pitch to yourself.
Yeah.
I like it.
Anyway, so that's sort of what my thought process is for this time. I'm a lot different than you in that I'm not producing weddings and events, so.
Right. Well, and we all, it's an opportunity to pivot. It's an opportunity to reevaluate. I don't want to be a Pollyanna, and pretend like this is easy for everyone. I mean, it's pretty challenging, and the low-level anxiety of not knowing makes it hard to have the thrust to rethink all the time. But if you can, boy, what a good opportunity it is for that. So,
yeah, and maybe don't try to recreate your whole business, but maybe just pick one thing that hasn't been working, but you haven't given yourself permission to look at it. And I'd love to hear from people as to what those things are too, because I think that's going to be one of my narratives going forward after we get through this current phase one of the pandemic, is how do you sustain your business in a new business marketplace, in a new environment for consumer. I'm going to be very interested in hearing from people.
Yeah. Exciting. Cool. Well, if COVID had not happened, one of the things that we would have been doing is we would be in my workshop right now, the 4th annual Would-Be Flower Workshop. Alas.
Yeah, my keeps telling me I should be going to Whitby today. Or I was.
Right. You still could. I mean, it's not quite legal according to the governor, but and one of the things that we were going to cover at the workshop, you were going to talk to people about floral storytelling and that sort of thing. So I wonder if you would like to, if you have any little tips or tricks that you'd like to share with people that would have been some takeaways. I know I'm asking you to take something that you often take a 2-day workshop to do, but a little highlight or two.
Did you say you have show notes that you're going to print?
I'll do a website, like a blog post kind of a deal, and
because I'll give you a link then to a free resource that people can download.
Awesome, thanks.
For fun, because they showed up here. It became clear to me that all the challenges I had as a garden writer are just the same challenges that people who are trying to write about their flowers have. And so years ago, I started teaching kind of what I call the Slow Flowers Creative Workshop, which was really to help people do floral storytelling in a new way. Some of them are very practical tools, like what the resource I'll give you, which is my groovy list of floral adjectives. I run into this rut where my biggest problem as a writer is what I call word echo. And so sometimes you'll be I'll reread something I've written. I'm like, oh my God, I said garden 5 times.
Uh-oh. We've got a little glitch.
Yeah, I'm going to plug my phone in really quick while we're doing this.
Oh, okay.
Did you hit a glitch where I stopped?
It paused for a second. So
it was telling my battery was dying. Hang on one second. I was 100%, but boy, these calls, they suck up a lot of juice, huh?
Yeah, they do suck up a lot of juice, bandwidth and battery juice.
All right, there we go. We've got power now. So
okay.
Yeah, sorry for that distraction, everybody.
It's okay. We've got to roll with these things. So you were saying that you would say, I said garden 5 times about the word echoes. Right. So your list is alternatives.
Yeah. So I started a list. I didn't mean to cut you off. I started a notebook of words and, different ways to say, garden. It could be landscape or backyard or environment or patio or so you just kind of have to stretch it.
Right.
That same thing happens in floral writing. Also, where I use beautiful all the time. Beautiful is a great word. Other ways to describe an arrangement or a flower field. So those exercises are really fun to do. And the way I recommend it is start yourself a notebook of words. And it might be blank for a while, but as you are reading other people's blogs, even their Instagram.
Oh, good one.
Start jotting down the words that mean something to you, that kind of have some juiciness to them. And I do this for color as well. And I have pages and pages of ways to describe yellow, ways to describe pink, ways to describe, green, for goodness sakes, where we use that all the time.
Right.
And then that kind of helps beef up your language. And I like words that are hardworking, that say more than the number of letters in that word. I want something that's got.
Right.
So it's a little bit of a literary approach. So those are practical things that I was going to walk people through. Remember, we did that exercise. I do it every time, where we lay out a table, a long table of bud vases, and every bud vase has a stem of something. It doesn't have to be a flower. It could be a leaf, a branch. And I basically give this challenge to people to write a little phrase about any number of these bud vases and describe what you're seeing without saying what it is.
Yeah.
It's a good
That
exercise.
was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun. And it was so fun to hear what everybody wrote and how different it all was, which leads to your point of that then helps you make your own unique story, flower story.
Well, that's exactly right. You hit the nail on the head. We have so much sameness in our marketplace, and the only thing that we can control is our own point of view and our own unique relationship with flowers. And so why not truly sit with yourself and think about how you describe that. And there's so many beautiful like about pages out on, and I read a lot of about pages because whenever I interview somebody, first thing I do is go to your about page on your website. And number one, please put your first and last name in your
and your location
in your bio. Yeah. Oh, the Instagram pages that don't say where your business is drive me crazy.
Totally crazy.
Yeah, small details.
And your first name, seriously, like, your flower and fun farm, that's great, but who are you? I want to know your name.
But also people say, hi, I'm Amy and I love flowers. Like, okay, but what's your last name? Because some writer is going to want to interview you and doesn't know.
Yeah.
And, it's a tiny little thing, but a lot of people, I think, Toby, people are like, well, I don't want to have it be about me. I don't want to brag.
Right.
But just give the basics because journalists like Debra Prinzing want that information.
And we hear all the time that people want to buy from people. So don't make it about you, but at least let them know who you are so that they know who it is that they're investing in. I mean, that's fair.
Absolutely. And it can be about you in the context of your journey and your floral narrative of how you got from helping your grandma in her garden to today. But unfortunately, that grandma metaphor is so overused, or the mother.
Right.
So, it's fine with me if you could find something else. What I love really reading is when people talk about their relationship with the land, and perhaps, like Toby, you have such a distinctive being on Whidbey Island. You've made Whidbey Island part of your brand. The whole reason the Whidbey Flower Workshop was successful is people wanted to come experience this place that you lived in. That
pretty
is
magical.
Yeah, and you share it, and you've in on your website and in all your posts, you talk about place. So you're not talking about yourself as much as this influence that you have, or what's in.
Yeah. Right.
So we were going to do that at the Whidbey Flower Workshop, and I miss you, and I'm so sorry that I can't be there right now. But there'll be a do-over. I know that.
Oh, yeah, it'll be fine. One thing I want to give a little plug to, another thing we were going to do at the flower workshop that ties into this. And so I had a pairing of you and then Alex Alexander, who has, I'm going to be interviewing her tomorrow at 10 Pacific time. So she was a planner in the wedding industry, and she's gone on to be a blogger and realized how little people are using Pinterest and blogging and social media. So we were going to take your storytelling exercise and then help translate that into better Pinterest, blog, Instagram stuff with Alex's techniques. So do tune in tomorrow at 10 a.m. and we'll have a little tidbit with Alex and we'll all learn some of that. So I wanted to share all of that.
I thought that was next Monday. It's tomorrow?
It's tomorrow. Yeah, I'm doing it this week just in honor of the workshop. A little bonus session.
I will be there. I want to hear to that so much because I'm
sure we can all learn.
I'm like a dropout of Pinterest. I'm the worst.
Yeah. Well, apparently it's really powerful. So we're underutilizing it. I see a question mark about September and visit to Canada. And yeah, like Nikki, stay tuned. If we're allowed, the plan is Becky Feasby's hosting the Sustainable Flowers Workshop in Calgary in September. And it seems like a good one. And I hope to go. We'll see. Stay tuned. And you haven't made the call on the summit yet, have you?
No, but I'm kind of giving you a bit of an insight into my thinking. We have an agreement with Filoli, our host in San Francisco, that we aren't going to make the call till May 15th. I think originally we agreed to that because of what was happening with California's stay-in-place policies.
Yeah.
Right now, sadly, if you go to Filoli's website, it says Filoli is closed indefinitely, which is tragic.
Yeah.
We're a bit kind of beholden to them. But we're going to make the call the 15th of May. Whether, I mean, I'm assuming that end of June is not going to happen there. And so we've announced that the new dates for the Slow Flower Summit at Filoli are going to be, I'm looking at my calendar, October 26th and 27th.
Okay.
And actually the staff there, the horticulture staff are like, oh my God, the dahlias will be thriving. It'll be so beautiful. Like they're trying to talk up end of summer, early October, fall. And so that's what I meant when I said, why am I so locked into having the summit during American Flowers Week? You know, now I have an opportunity to, if we do announce, which is only in 2 weeks, so we'll announce that. You know, unless something miraculously happens, it's probably going to get postponed. So now I can say, okay, well, what will American Flowers Week look like? And yeah, so don't worry, Toby, you'll be dragged into that because we have a do-over hooked up for American Flowers Week, which has always been a virtual promotion. You know, it's always been anyone come participate wherever they are, but you do have to plan it.
Right.
So that's where I'm at on that. I did see a few questions come scrolling through. I see Laura saying Whidbey Island Workshop 2017 was the best.
Good. Yeah, it was good.
There was a question. Are you seeing the questions come through?
I am seeing the questions, although in my past interviews, I've really screwed things up by trying to interact with the screen, so I've been wanting to let them kind of go. But one question was about how we can help influence some of the bigger companies like Syndicate Sales or whatever for working without foam. Is that the one that you were noticing?
I did from Amy from Molly and Myrtle. Yeah, I mean, that's your raison d'etre, girly girl, so let's talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think asking for alternatives is the best thing that everyone can do, is let them know that there's demand. So if you are a person that wants to work without foam and you want other mechanics, please send a message to Syndicate Sales. Please send a message to Oasis. Sign my petition that's on Real Change. I haven't promoted that in a while. I ought to. That's letting people know that we want alternatives. Because if they don't know that there's a market that's demanding something else, they're not going to be, there's no fire under them to develop those products. And, you know, I think, so that's kind of my first go-to. I have plenty of thoughts on the workarounds, but in terms of influencing them, I think the best thing you can do is knock on their door, send them messages, call them, let them know that you don't approve of foam and that you want something else.
Yeah, I have a couple of thoughts too. One is as a journalist and a storyteller, I really only write, I try to do what I call social engineering through journalism. Like I write the positive stories about people who are successful in their businesses by choosing other methods and mechanics like you are, Toby. And rather than like being this soapbox critic, I just try to stay positive and say, here's what I am going to shine a light on. And here's why. So that's one thought, and that's going to continue. My other, this is dystopian, but I think that these big foam makers already know that North America and Europe are not interested in their product. I mean, yes, there's people.
Oh, sure.
There are people who use it, but the popular kids are not using it. So what are they doing? They've been dumping that product in places like Asia and South America. But
It's true.
Those economies are more fragile in terms of their consumer, what their consumer kind of profile is. And this is a gross generalization, but my prediction is those economies are not going to bounce back as quickly in their big, epic, over-the-top weddings, for example, that would use the foam. So I think there's going to be a pain point. And right now, just like a typical American way, if, like cigarettes, well, the demand went down in the U.S., so let's just dump it onto some other poor country. That's sort of what the petroleum-based product line is, what it's looking like. And so if this disruption, now I don't want to see any florist anywhere in the world be hurt, but I do think that the demand will change. And so the pain point is going to come from not just us speaking up, but maybe just shifts in economic reality.
Yeah. I also think I want to add to the other way that we can put pressure. I mean, we've seen like Mount Everest just banned any expeditions using single-use plastic. I think I read that China has banned single-use plastic bags. It's coming along, and what we need to do is help work with the environmental groups so that they understand, and the environmental lobbyists, so that they understand that foam is a single-use plastic, and we need to do our grassroots letter writing campaigns to let people know that foam is a single-use plastic. So we can send our influence that way. The other thing we can do is just talk to our customers. So I get a lot of people that ask me, like, people don't come to me asking for this product, or how do you sell it? And my thought is that, your average consumer doesn't understand how flowers are designed. They don't know about the mechanics. They don't know about the supply system. They don't know anything about flower farming or design mechanics. And so they are unaware of the impacts of certain ways things are done. So they just bring a picture. I want this for my wedding. And they have no idea what that means.
Right.
So if we educate the clients, I've never had anyone that I've talked to about it who's been like, oh, well, I want foam anyway. They don't know. They're like, oh, there's another way to do it? Cool. That's great. We don't care. Just give me this pretty thing. But when they understand why that I work a certain way, then they understand, there's the good, the bad, and the ugly in this world. And then the best thing I can do is use them. This is their first big flower purchase probably. And if I can use this as an educational touch point with them, they understand then that there's, local is better and foam free is better. Then maybe I've influenced their purchasing decisions through the rest of their flower buying life. And when we can pull that demand for local and foam free and better than up through the supply chain from the consumer up, and I know that's so much work that you're doing, is to educate consumers as well, because that's where the demand comes from, right? And so if we can inspire the consumers to change their ask, that will also help drive big change.
I think going back to some of the meetings you and I had with the Seattle solid waste folks here in our community, who have been really influential in changing food packaging.
Oh, damn.
Also the plastic bags and straws. And they are kind of like going for the mass market first and regulating close to the consumer, and they view foam, if they even know about it, as a B2B issue. And so they on the list. And we enlightened them in our meetings, and they've been super supportive. It's just not a priority yet.
Well, they want to get the biggest problems solved first, which is realistic, right? I mean, that's good. But I've experienced, when I talk to Heather Trim from Zero Waste Washington, who spends her life thinking about single-use plastics, she'd never thought about flower foam. So, it doesn't hurt to work with your zero waste organization in your neighborhood and let them know, so that once we get through the bag bans and the grocery packaging and the takeout, and they can then start okay, now what do we need to expand the focus into? We can get, foam into some of the, farther out in the target, Yeah.
I mean, I think showing people solutions is so much better than just telling them that they're bad. And that's
totally
striving to do. So, it will.
I like that.
It will change. Maybe
yes,
that's what we want, but
small actions add up. So if all of us can make small actions, they add up. So whether they're small quiet actions or small loud actions, they're all good.
The choir is all singing from the same page, and it's really loud. But if you had one little person like me trying to project, it would be hard because I'm not a vocal.
Yeah, totally. Hey, someone sent a note in there about the timeline for AgriWool, and I want to say that I did invite them to be on the interview with me, and he said that he wants to work something out. Interviews aren't really his thing, but they're still pretty shut down there, and the supply chain has been really disrupted, and so I know that I know that I don't know anything really, and I'm just a fan of AgriWool, or a potential fan of AgriWool. I'm not like a representative for them or anything, but I'm trying to stay. I'm just cheerleading for the option and trying to stay in touch with them as a company. But I would say we don't expect it in America anytime in the near future.
Yeah.
So,
well, again, our reliance on the global supply chain of product. It's great that that's coming down the pike, but it's also would be so awesome if we had a domestic plant-based alternative.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think plant-based is, one thing about AgriWool, it is made from non-renewable resources. So in my mind, it's not like a perfect product either. There's still plenty of room for a better thing to come.
Yeah.
So
I need to learn.
Yeah.
I've kind of, that's on my educate myself list, but I know you've written about it.
Yeah, well, just briefly, it's spun basalt and sucrose, and it's, I think, a lot like the growing medium rock wool. And it also reminds me of like fiberglass insulation, which is also a spun, rock fiber. So it is made from natural products, but they're not basalt isn't renewable, right? It's a rock. So sucrose is, but it also sugar farming is a big GMO crop. So that kind of creeps me out. I don't know about that. So
good questions though.
Yeah. But meanwhile, I still, I've been a foam-free designer for almost 10 years, and I look at AgriWool as a nice option for what I consider to be a rare opportunity when someone really needs foam. Like maybe it's the memorial situation. I don't do much memorial work, but really I overall don't think we even totally need it.
Right.
So, yeah.
Good. Thanks for that.
Yeah. Oops. See, there it is, me screwing up my feed trying to interact with the comments. Crazy. Well, anything else from you?
Yeah, you asked me to have some tips for your listeners, and what is the number one message what I would like to share with your audience?
Yes.
Many of our members of Slow Flowers. So, number one, of course, I really want you to join Slow Flowers. Join slowflowerssociety.com is the website. And I've been at the beginning of this year, I created a promotion for new members, and I have these cute little postcards that are like theater tickets.
Bookmark?
They're like bookmarks, yeah. But I have a whole box of them, but I'm not going to events right now to the promo code, Toby, to share in your notes. But basically, Flower Society, the standard membership to join annually is $50. But the premium membership gives you your own page on slowflowers.com, which is where consumers and farmers and florists all go to, where you can have a gallery of photos and a video and your logo and reviews, and that's $200. So what I've decided to do for new members only is to give you that premium benefits for a year at the $50 rate. So I have...
That's such a deal, Deborah.
Pardon?
That's such a deal. That's such a deal.
Yeah.
I think that the premium membership is a deal at $200. I have to say, I've been a premium member, I think, for a long time. Yeah. And I would say that my membership to Slow Flowers has come back to me 1,000-fold, probably more folds, lots of folds. And anyone who is not a member of Slow Flowers is a fool.
Well, that leads to my tip. And you follow this tip incredibly well just because of your nature and your creativity and how you communicate. But I don't know what you're doing unless you tell me. And so tips are, number one, have great photography. Even if you don't have any money, do a trade with somebody. I can't write about you if I don't have beautiful photography. As horrible as that is, I don't mean like get your glam on and have false eyelashes. I mean, environmental photography that shows you in your space interacting with flowers. And, you could take this downturn time to teach yourself how to do photography of your own space, teach a family member how to push the button and click after you've set it up. Just know that really helps me a lot, especially when I'm talking media and other outlets. My own outlets, maybe I'm a little more forgiving, but I think that we're a visual business.
For sure we are.
Do that, and then get in touch with me and tell me what you're doing, because I'm always working on some angle, and I'm always looking for a new way to continue the conversation around the floral entrepreneur, being the grower or the designer. And often I'm not even aware of a new method or service, or you've done a styled shoot and you don't know where to get it published. Come to me.
Hello. Right.
That's how people are going to get the value out of their Slow Flowers membership, because I have a PR machine, but I can't single-handedly call all 715 members and say, what you got going? I need you to kind of make it a two-way conversation. So that's a thing that is not as to scold anybody, but to say, I'm here and my inbox, it might be less full right now. So now's the time to get in touch.
And you're very generous. You're very generous with your contacts and your love and your promotion. You're great. I'd like to say also that, you can do a socially distanced outdoor photo shoot quite easily. I know that weather doesn't cooperate with everywhere people might be listening, but if it's a nice day, your photographer friend probably has a camera with a big, long lens, and they can easily stay 6 feet away from you and take some good shots. So
yeah, we did it last week for the Seattle Wholesale Growers Market series, and on a 12-acre farm, you're more than 6 feet away from each other. It's
for sure.
And I was telling somebody, it's so much safer doing that than going to Trader Joe's, And
yeah, totally.
Oh, I agree.
And the rewards are greater too.
Say that again.
The rewards are greater too.
Absolutely. So those are my my positive admonitions. Like, own it, own your story, and then share it.
Own your story, tell it well, make sure people know it with your name, your full name.
And practice those word muscles. I'll send you that link though for my floral adjective PDF that you can share with people today.
Cool. Yeah, and because technology is not my friend, it takes me a couple days to get these things up on my blog post and edit and stuff, but it'll happen. It's just slow. We don't have an awesome internet offering where we are on the island, so our bandwidth is slow, and there's a lot of demands on that system right now. So
good that this works then, Toby.
Yeah, totally. It's exciting. And so also make sure you tune in tomorrow on Tuesday at 10 a.m. to hear from Alex. And then we will really know when we do get some PR love, how to really exploit that content and do a great job with it. So, go join Slow Flowers. Go follow my Slow Flowers on Instagram. Go follow Sustainable Floral Design. Share with all your friends. Stay well. Think about how you're going to pivot and be in touch with us. Let us know what you're doing with your businesses and how things are changing and how this all feels for you. And I'd like to hear from everyone.
Awesome. Thank you so much today.
Yep. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Okay. Hugs and kisses.
Bye-bye.
All right. Be well. Thank you. Bye.